When people talk about attraction, most of the conversation always circles back to looks. Society has conditioned us to believe that beauty is the ultimate key to desire, that the way you look in the mirror will dictate whether someone stays or strays. But if that were true, some of the most physically flawless people on this planet wouldn't struggle to keep meaningful relationships. Looks might grab attention, but they do not hold devotion. The truth is, confidence is the most powerful and lasting aphrodisiac. And when I say confidence, I don't mean arrogance. I don't mean pretending to be something you're not. I mean the quiet, unshakable belief that you are enough as you are, that you deserve to be loved, cherished, and respected. That kind of confidence doesn't just turn heads, it captures hearts. Let's think about it for a second. When you walk into a room or when you step into a moment of intimacy, what energy do you carry with you? Because energy is everything, a man can feel it. You don't even have to say much. If you walk in apologizing for yourself, shrinking, doubting whether you're desirable, then the experience becomes hesitant, it becomes fragile, and it leaves the other person unsure of how to respond. But if you show up with a sense of certainty, a grounded presence that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I'm not here to beg for validation, then the dynamic changes completely. That kind of confidence speaks louder than the perfect body ever could. See, confidence is magnetic because it creates safety. Think about it. When you are secure in yourself, you're not needy, you're not constantly questioning his every move, and you're not performing for approval. That's attractive, because it allows the man to relax into the moment as well. Men, though they may not admit it openly, are deeply affected by the confidence of the woman they're with. They may not have the language to describe it, but they can feel the difference between someone who doubts their worth and someone who radiates self-assurance. And make no mistake, a man will chase confidence longer than he'll ever chase perfection. Now, let me get psychological with you for a minute. In relationships, what people are truly hungry for is not just love, it's certainty. Certainty that the person they're with values themselves enough to stand firm. Certainty that they won't collapse under pressure. Certainty that their presence is not fragile, but powerful. Confidence delivers that certainty. And what's fascinating is that confidence has nothing to do with how the world sees you, and everything to do with how you see yourself. If you can look in the mirror and say, I am worthy of love as I am, and if someone cannot see that, that is their loss. Then you carry an aura that cannot be faked. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Insecurity is loud. It leaks out in little ways. In how often you seek reassurance, in how you compare yourself to others, in how you hesitate instead of leaning into the moment. And that energy is exhausting over time. On the other hand, confidence is quiet, but it resonates. It's the difference between begging someone to love you and inspiring them to never let you go. A man doesn't stay because you tried to be flawless. He stays because you showed up as real, whole, and unapologetically yourself. And if you're sitting there thinking, but I don't feel confident all the time, let me tell you this, nobody does. Confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move with strength even when doubt is whispering in your ear. It's the ability to remind yourself, I am enough, before anyone else validates it. That's where the power comes from. The truth is, when you embrace your own value, you give him permission to embrace it too. When you love yourself, you teach him how to love you. So here's the takeaway. If you want to create a connection so strong that he never wants to let go, don't obsess over being the prettiest, the most skilled, or the most perfect. Obsess over being the most present, the most authentic, and the most confident version of yourself. Because confidence is not just attractive, it's addictive, and once he experiences that kind of energy, he will never confuse it with anything else. Confidence is the real aphrodisiac. Looks fade, techniques can be copied, but the energy of a woman who knows her worth, That is unforgettable. That is what makes him hooked for life. A lot of people think intimacy is about what happens physically. The moves, the timing, the rhythm, the technique. That's where the focus goes, because we live in a world that treats passion like a skill set, as if it's a performance you have to master. But let me tell you something real. Physical connection alone will never sustain a man's heart. It might grab his attention in the moment. It might give a temporary high, but it does not create a bond that lasts. What keeps him coming back, what makes him truly hooked for life, is the emotional connection you create in those moments. See, technique can be learned, practiced, even replicated by anyone, but emotional intimacy, that can't be faked and it can't be duplicated. That's what makes it powerful. A man may forget the specifics of what you did, but he will never forget how you made him feel. And if he feels understood, if he feels valued, if he feels safe in your presence, that's when he forms an attachment that no physical perfection can ever compete with. Let me put it this way. Imagine two people sharing the same space physically, but emotionally they're 1,000 miles apart. That experience is empty. You can be there in body but absent in soul, and he will sense that distance no matter how much effort you put into performance. On the other hand, imagine an experience where the physical side might not even be perfect, but the emotional atmosphere is charged with care, laughter, honesty, and presence. That's the moment that lingers. That's the moment that builds a memory so strong it keeps replaying in his mind long after it's over. Now, here's why this is so important. Men, despite how culture often paints them, are not purely physical creatures. They crave emotional affirmation just as much as women do. They just don't always have the language to express it. A man may not say, "I need emotional connection," but you'll see it in how he responds to someone who truly gets him. When he feels that you're not just touching his body but reaching into his heart, he attaches, and attachment is what makes him stay. The psychology behind this is fascinating. When we connect emotionally, our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone. That chemical doesn't come from technique. It comes from trust, from vulnerability, from eye contact, from laughter, from the sense that I can be myself here. That's why people say you don't just fall in love with looks. You fall in love with how someone makes you feel. Because the body might get tired, the techniques might fade, but the emotional memory, that lives on. And here's where a lot of people make mistakes. They focus so much on getting it right, physically, that they forget to actually be there. They're performing instead of connecting. They're thinking about how they look, or what their partner is thinking, instead of simply being present. But presence is what creates intimacy. It's not about perfection, it's about depth. It's about letting yourself laugh in the middle of a moment, or whispering something that makes him feel seen, or holding silence in a way that makes him feel safe. That's intimacy, that's connection. When you shift the focus from technique to connection, you take the pressure off yourself. You stop trying to impress and you start trying to engage. And here's the irony. When you're connected emotionally, the physical side naturally improves. Why? Because you're both relaxed, you're both open, and you're both in tune with each other's energy. That's when intimacy flows, that's when it becomes unforgettable, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you did it together and it meant something. So let me leave you with this. If you want him to be hooked for life, don't just focus on what you can do to his body. Focus on what you can do to his heart, because at the end of the day, he may not remember the technique, but he will always remember the feeling. And if the feeling is deep enough, real enough, and safe enough, that's the bond he'll never want to break. Emotional connection is the secret ingredient. And once you understand that, you stop chasing perfection and you start creating magic. One of the greatest mistakes people make in relationships is assuming that passion should always feel effortless, as though once you've found the right person, the spark will take care of itself. But here's the truth. Passion doesn't die from lack of love. It dies from lack of play. When everything becomes routine, when every moment is predictable, intimacy loses its fire. The human heart craves excitement, novelty, and surprise. That's not immaturity, that's biology. And if you want to keep a man hooked for life, you have to understand the power of playfulness and the element of surprise. Think about it. When you first meet someone, every moment is charged because everything is new. The conversations feel exciting, the laughter flows easily, and even the smallest gestures feel electric. But over time, routine sets in. You know his habits, he knows yours, and without even realizing it, you start running on autopilot. Autopilot is the enemy of desire. It doesn't matter how strong the love is. If there's no variety, no laughter, no spontaneity, the spark fades. That's why you can't just rely on love alone. You have to bring energy into it. You have to bring play. Now, let me be clear. Playfulness doesn't mean immaturity. It doesn't mean acting like a teenager or forcing jokes. It's about being light, being open, being willing to step outside the script. It's about showing him that intimacy with you is not just passion. It's adventure. When you laugh together in those private moments, when you surprise him with something unexpected, when you're not afraid to break the pattern, you reignite his curiosity. And curiosity is powerful because curiosity makes him lean in instead of drift away. Let's take it deeper for a moment. Psychologically, the brain craves novelty. When something feels new, it releases dopamine, the same chemical that creates excitement and desire. That's why people get addicted to new experiences, why we're drawn to the thrill of surprise. In relationships, when you inject even small doses of novelty, a change in tone, a playful tease, a bold move, you awaken that dopamine response. It tells the brain, this is exciting, this is worth paying attention to. And when he starts to associate you with that feeling, you're no longer just a partner. You're his source of energy, of life, of fun. And let's not underestimate the role of laughter here. Laughter is one of the most intimate acts two people can share. It lowers walls, eases tension, and creates a sense of safety. When you can laugh together, even in the middle of an intimate moment, it bonds you on a deeper level. It tells him, this isn't just serious performance. This is joy. This is us. And joy is addictive. What surprises most people is that men, no matter how strong or stoic they appear, crave playfulness more than they admit. Because the world often tells men they have to be serious, tough, always in control. But when he's with a woman who can bring out his playful side, who gives him permission to let go of that weight, that's when he feels most alive. And the person who makes you feel most alive is the person you never want to lose. Now, of course, this doesn't mean every moment has to be a circus, or that you're constantly inventing new tricks. It's not about effort, it's about intention. Sometimes the smallest surprises make the biggest difference. A smile at the right time, a playful whisper when he least expects it, a sudden shift in energy that keeps him on his toes. The point is, you're keeping the atmosphere fresh. You're reminding him that intimacy with you is not just something to endure, it's something to look forward to. So here's the message: don't let love grow stale. Don't fall into the trap of thinking routine is enough. Bring lightness into it, bring laughter into it, bring surprise into it, because when you do, you create an experience he can't find anywhere else. You remind him that with you, he doesn't just feel loved, he feels alive. And that's the real secret. Love may build the foundation, but play keeps the fire burning. If you can keep that sense of curiosity and joy alive, you'll never have to worry about him drifting, because you'll be the one place he feels both secure and exhilarated. So don't be afraid to be playful. Don't be afraid to surprise, because in the end, routine may keep a relationship steady, but it's playfulness that keeps it unforgettable. One of the most overlooked truths in relationships is how deeply men crave admiration. A lot of women don't fully understand this because the way men and women receive love is often expressed differently. Women, most times, need to feel cherished, protected, and emotionally secure. Men, on the other hand, thrive when they feel respected, valued, and appreciated. That's not ego, it's wiring. And when you give a man genuine admiration, not flattery, not empty words, but real appreciation for who he is and what he does, you create a bond he doesn't want to live without. Let me make this clear. Men are starving for appreciation. They may not say it outright, but it's there. The world rarely tells men they're enough. Think about it. Men are constantly judged by their status, their ability to provide, their performance. Everywhere they turn, there's pressure. Be stronger, be richer, be more successful. And that pressure is heavy. So when he comes home, when he enters the space with you, and he doesn't have to perform, but instead feels seen, admired, and appreciated, that's when you become irreplaceable. Because you've given him what the world refuses to give, permission to be enough right where he is. Now, let's go a little deeper with this. Admiration isn't about inflating his ego, it's about affirming his essence. It's about recognizing the small things, how he shows up, how he protects, how he tries, even when it isn't perfect. That's what a man holds on to. A lot of people think passion fades because of time, but often it fades because appreciation dies. When effort goes unnoticed, the spirit goes unmotivated. The same way a woman flourishes when she feels loved, a man flourishes when he feels respected. Respect is to men what love is to women. And the irony is, when a man feels respected, his love deepens automatically. I'll tell you why this matters so much in intimacy. Vulnerability is built on trust, and trust grows where there's appreciation. If a man feels like nothing he does is ever good enough, if he feels constantly criticized or compared, he withdraws. He may still be present in body, but emotionally he's distant. On the other hand, when he feels admire, even for the smallest things, he invests more, he opens up more, he desires to give more, because appreciation creates a feedback loop. The more valued he feels, the more he wants to pour into the relationship. That's not manipulation, that's human nature, and let's be honest here. No man, no woman wants to stay in a place where their efforts are invisible. We're all wired to seek environments that affirm our worth. If your relationship becomes a place of criticism, comparison, or neglect, don't be surprised if the bond weakens. But when your relationship becomes a place of admiration and gratitude, it becomes a sanctuary. It becomes the place he wants to come back to again and again, because it fuels his spirit. Here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They think appreciation has to be grand. They think it has to be some big, poetic declaration. But often, it's the little acknowledgments that matter most. A simple "I appreciate how hard you work," or "I love the way you protect us," can carry more weight than any performance in the bedroom, because those words strike at the core of his identity. They tell him, "I see you, I value you, you matter here," and that is magnetic. Psychologically, admiration speaks to a man's need for significance. Every human being longs to know that their life has impact. For men especially, significance and respect are like oxygen. When he feels he is significant to you, when he feels his presence makes your life better, that oxygen keeps him alive in the relationship. Without it, no amount of passion or playfulness will sustain the bond. So, here's the truth. If you want a man hooked for life, don't just give him your body, give him your admiration. Don't just admire the big wins. Admire the efforts, the intentions, the character. Let him know that who he is matters just as much as what he does. Because once he knows you see his worth, he will fight to never lose that feeling. And let me leave you with this. Love without admiration becomes duty. But love with admiration becomes devotion. If you want him devoted, if you want him hooked not just today but for life, learn to appreciate him not for what you wish he could be, but for who he already is. That simple shift can transform everything. A lot of people misunderstand intimacy. They think it's about putting on the best show, having the right moves, saying all the right things. But what actually draws someone in, what keeps them connected on a soul level isn't performance. It's vulnerability. Vulnerability is magnetic because it's rare. Most people walk around with masks on. They're guarded, they're cautious, they're afraid of being fully seen. So when you step into intimacy with honesty, with openness, with the courage to let someone see not just your strengths but your flaws, you create a kind of connection that's unforgettable. Now, let me be clear. Vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean falling apart at the seams or letting someone mistreat you. Vulnerability is strength in its rawest form. It's saying, this is me, unfiltered. I'm not perfect, but I'm real. That kind of authenticity is powerful because it builds trust. And trust is the foundation of passion, of love, of devotion. Think about it. How many times have you been around someone who looks perfect on the outside, who says all the right things, but you still feel a wall between you? That's because perfection creates distance. It's intimidating, it's cold, it's unreachable. But when someone allows you to see their fears, their insecurities, their humanness, that's when you feel close to them. That's when you say, I can connect with this. I can trust this. Vulnerability doesn't push people away. It pulls them closer. And here's the thing about men. As much as the world teaches them to be strong, to hide their emotions, to keep it together, deep down they long for a safe place where they can lay those burdens down. If you can be that place, if you can create an atmosphere where he doesn't have to pretend, where he can be himself without judgment, that's when he feels bonded to you in a way that no one else can match. Because you've given him something priceless, safety. Psychologically, vulnerability triggers empathy. When you open up about your own truth, it signals to his mind and heart, she trusts me. That trust encourages him to reciprocate. And when two people start sharing openly, walls come down and the connection deepens. That's why some of the most passionate moments are born not out of perfection, but out of raw honesty. Moments where you can laugh about something awkward, admit a fear, or share something deeply personal. Those moments don't weaken love, they strengthen it. Now, I know some people fear vulnerability because they see it as risk. And yes, it is a risk. You might open yourself up and not get the response you want. But here's the truth. Without vulnerability, there is no real intimacy. Without risk, there is no reward. If you hold back your truth out of fear, you might keep yourself safe, but you'll also keep yourself disconnected. You'll always wonder why something feels missing. What feels missing is that exchange of raw, unfiltered humanity, and men feel that absence too. He may never say it, but when there's no vulnerability, he senses that he doesn't truly know you. And if he doesn't truly know you, he can't truly attach to you, because love isn't built on a perfect performance, it's built on truth. Let me take it even deeper. Vulnerability is actually the greatest form of confidence. When you're confident, you don't need to hide. You don't need to present a polished version of yourself. You can let someone see the scars, the quirks, the imperfections, because you trust that your worth isn't diminished by them. And that kind of confidence wrapped in vulnerability, that's irresistible. That's what makes a man say, I'm not letting this go. So stop thinking you need to be flawless. Stop thinking you need to hide your humanity. Start understanding that your openness, your softness, your honesty, those are the very things that create the deepest bond. Because here's the bottom line. Perfection may impress, but vulnerability connects. And connection is what keeps love alive for a lifetime. One of the greatest traps people fall into when it comes to intimacy is performance. They think they have to do everything right, to impress, to measure up to some invisible standard. But the truth is, What hooks someone for life isn't how well you perform, it's how deeply you're present. Performance is about the outside, presence is about the inside, and presence is what creates an experience that lasts long after the moment is over. See, performance is rooted in fear. It's driven by the thought, am I enough? Am I doing this right? Will they approve of me? And when you're in that mindset, you're not really there. You're in your head, rehearsing instead of living. But presence, that's about being fully engaged, fully open, fully alive in the moment. It's about putting down the script and saying, I'm here, I'm with you, this is real. And let me tell you, no technique in the world can compete with that kind of energy. Think about it this way. When two people are both present, there's a rhythm that naturally forms. You don't have to overthink, because you're tuned into each other. You're responding, not rehearsing. You're flowing, not forcing, and that flow, that sense of being fully locked into each other's energy, that's what makes the moment unforgettable. It's not about how polished it looks from the outside. It's about how deeply it feels on the inside. Let's be honest, we live in a world obsessed with performance. Social media, movies, culture, they all push this idea that passion is about spectacle, but real intimacy has nothing to do with spectacle. It has everything to do with connection, and connection doesn't come from trying to look perfect. It comes from being present enough to feel the moment, to notice the other person, to engage with what's actually happening instead of worrying about how it appears. Psychologically, presence is powerful because it grounds both people. When you're present, your nervous system calms down. You're not stuck in anxiety or self-criticism. You're simply there, and when you bring that calm, grounded energy, your partner feels it too. They relax, they open up, they mirror your presence. Suddenly, it's not just two bodies in a room. It's two souls sharing the same space, fully awake to each other. That's what creates the kind of bond that lingers. And here's the irony, when you stop focusing on performance, you actually get better at intimacy. Why? Because you're listening, you're attuned, you're picking up on the unspoken signals, the shift in breath, the change in tone, the subtle cues that tell you what's resonating. You can't do that if you're caught up in your head, worrying about whether you're good enough. Presence makes you better, not because you're trying harder, but because you're actually paying attention. Now, let me tell you why this is so magnetic. Presence communicates value. When you're fully present with someone, you're saying, you matter enough for me to give you my whole attention. And in a world where everyone's distracted, multitasking, and half engaged, that kind of focus feels rare. It feels sacred. That's why presence is unforgettable. It makes the other person feel significant, and significance is what every human being craves. But here's the challenge. Presence takes courage. It means silencing the inner critic. It means letting go of the pressure to perform. It means trusting that who you are, your essence, your energy, your authenticity, is enough. And that's not easy, but it's worth it. Because once you understand that presence outweighs performance, you stop exhausting yourself trying to be perfect, and you start creating experiences that actually matter. So let me leave you with this. Don't focus on being flawless. Don't waste energy trying to prove your worth. Focus on being present. Focus on bringing your full self into the moment, because when you do, you don't just create an encounter. You create a memory, a connection, a feeling that lasts long after the moment is gone. Performance impresses for a second. Presence connects for a lifetime. And if you want someone hooked for life, presence is the one thing you can give that no one else can replicate.